Hey everyone, welcome to Rome Sessions. Jason Griffin here. Happy as always to have you with us. I am joined today by two great panelists, international panel here, and we're going to be talking all about getting stuff done in Rome, a topic that is definitely near and dear to my heart. So my first panelist today is Jessica Shea. Jessica is joining us from San Francisco. She's an ex-management consultant, now working as an engagement manager at an AI startup. Jessica's work in technology and digital transformation led her to a deep interest in rapid learning, productivity, cognitive science, and the intersection of the human brain and technology. Jessica, welcome to the session.
Hello, everybody.
And my second panelist today is Matt McGann. Matt is the founder and CEO of Health Horizon, where he's implemented Rome across the entire company. Matt has a PhD in theoretical physics and has deep experience with knowledge graphs, university commercialization, and data analysis. Matt has 3 children and is joining us from Canberra, Australia. You can follow his groundbreaking work on using Rome in team environments at romeforteamwork.com. Matt, welcome to the session.
Thank you, Jason. It's early morning here, but my mind is clear. And,
good.
My
Perfect.
voice is low, so that's good.
Yeah, looks like you're in a nice morning, brightly lit room there. And like I said, it's always fun having an international panel here. So appreciate you guys jumping on. We've got a few folks joining us live here in the audience. So if you have any questions at all or comments during today's session, please do not hesitate to drop those in the chat. We would love to hear from you and would love to have some engagement with our audience throughout the course of today's session. So I want to start off high level before we jump into some of the specific use cases and ways that you guys are both getting things done in Rome. I want to start with you, Jessica. Give me your high level and your experience with Rome. What do you think it is about Rome that makes it an effective tool for managing productivity?
I think a lot of the work that we do today, when I lean heavily on the GTD method, and a lot of the work that we do today are a combination of physical action, like having to actually do something, and then a lot of strategic thinking work. So I think Rome just provides you that canvas to allow you to marinate, put both together, where you can say, I can track all the activity that needs to do, but in between, I can easily switch my attention from task to task and be able to collect information and then think through the problem you're trying to solve as you keep everything in one place. So I think that's what makes Rome uniquely fitted for a lot of the knowledge work that we're doing today.
Yeah, I love that perspective. I definitely find myself thinking a lot about how often I have to switch between sort of a tactical execution mode and a open, free thinking, creative mode. And I agree with you. Rome is an awesome place to be able to make those switches between those two frames of thinking very seamlessly. Matt, I'd love to hear your perspectives on the same question. What do you think it is about Rome? I know you use it very extensively in a team environment. Generally speaking, what do you feel it is about Rome that makes it effective as a tool for driving your team's productivity?
I think it's the block level resolution and what you can do with every block. Because it's essentially, I like the comparison to Excel more than anything else. Excuse me.
No problem.
Excel, because you can go down to individual blocks, essentially a cell, right? In Excel is the same sort of thing.
Right.
I would find myself almost trying to make solutions in Excel. I mean, everyone can hack together a solution to any problem in Excel. It's like a kind of Turing machine where you can just solve any problem with formulas. And I think Rome will be like that soon enough, where you can solve any problem. The secret is that Rome is usable and readable to a human and much more easily shared and used like that. So the few things I like especially are the hierarchical nature, where you can just start writing and just go, and then the block referencing, the querying. They're really the key parts there.
Yeah, I think that's such a key for any Rome user, new Rome users especially, to kind of get your head around that the atomic nature of blocks and the flexibility of what you can do with those within Rome really does open up some very interesting possibilities. Well, let's get right into it. Jessica, you mentioned GTD there in that first question, and I'd love to have you start by maybe showing us a little bit of how you're using Rome and what's your kind of daily page setup, and how are you mapping some of those getting things done parameters into Rome for anyone who's familiar with the GTD framework?
Will do. Before I start, just a few concepts for people who may or may not be familiar with it. So, the core concept for GTD is David Allen often say your brain is a crappy office. We often keep so many open loops in our head, and that's the reason why we're overwhelmed. So, a lot of the work that he promotes is to externalize your thought or your to-do list, which is very similar to kind of the Rome philosophy, right? Right, put everything down, put everything in the graph, and make it referenceable. So the core idea of your brain is a crappy office is the first thing, and the second thing is close your open loop as much as possible. So be able to put everything on paper and then prioritize, clarify, and then prioritize what you need to do. So I want to show you a little bit of how I do that on a daily workflow. And Jason, help me with it a little bit. I usually start with a capture habit so I can show everybody how I capture it and then put it into the graph. Which one would you like me to start?
Yeah, if you think it makes sense to start with the capture, then let's start there.
Will do. So give me 1 second. Let me set the graph up and share my screen. Give me 1 second. Let me start with, is my screen coming through?
We are not seeing your screen yet.
Let me show my screen.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I want to showcase here is I also use a hybrid model when I'm doing capture for Rome. So one of the things that I do, is there a lag here? It's a little slow. I don't think it's coming through correctly. Give me 1 second.
We've got your phone up on the screen, and then we're seeing Rome behind it. So it does look like you got everything up there.
So you can see if I click on this, would you see a pop-up? I think it's just my screen is kind of delay.
We are not
seeing it.
Not seeing a pop-up, no.
So maybe I'll skip the capture part for a little later, and let me just go directly into the graph then.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, let me put that aside. So I want to show you my graph a little bit. And to start, let me start with a little exercise. Let's say let's rewind it backward to yesterday. So a lot of the work that GTD does is to be able to have a trustworthy system where you can capture everything and will resurface for you at the right time so you can trust it. So I wrote down something here today, and I'm just going to pick your brain a little bit, Jason. So can you tell me something that you're planning to do today?
Something that I'm planning to do today. Let's see. We're going to order carryout for dinner.
Okay. So I'm just capturing everything that I'm thinking, and we talked about, I'm going to capture it here. So this is what I'm going to do today. Tell me something you're planning to do this weekend. So it could be Saturday, Sunday. You don't know yet, but it's this weekend.
Tomorrow we are going to take my kids to the water park.
So you can see that I am tagging this according to when I want it to be discovered, right? And so tell me something that you're thinking about doing next week. So my example here, and one of the pain point for not having an app for GTD is it could be something that you plan to do some point in time next week, but not necessarily like you don't know which date yet. So my example here is call Auntie Jane. Can you give me something that you plan to do next week?
Yeah, let's say I got a press release I've got to finish drafting. So say finish drafting press release.
Awesome. Drafting. And you said that in good GTD style. Start with the verb of what you're trying to do.
I'm a GTD practitioner. I don't practice it as closely to the framework as I used to, but many of the principles I adopted years ago and have stuck with me ever since.
It's flexible, right? That's the part of why I like the system. Tell me a someday maybe.
Oh, someday maybe. Let's see. Fly fish in Patagonia.
So I'm going to do it someday maybe. So what I want to showcase is that the system that I built within Rome will allow you to trust your system and resurface this according to the time that you need it to be resurfaced. And then someday maybe will be a separate list that you can look at. So fast forward to today. Let's look at, actually, let me just do this. So fast forward today, I'm taking notes for what we are talking now, but I have a template set up where I call it just daily page. And this is basically using the Rome 42 plugin, the JavaScript plugin, to dynamically create this page. And I won't go into the specific mechanics, but I will show you what it's doing. So I'm going to let it populate and run. And then I will walk you through what you're seeing here right now. So let's start from the structure. So what I just populated here is a list of, I'm preparing my workbench, my work for today. So the first bucket is my daily page. So this is a combination of daily journaling and then just kind of offloading my mind at the beginning of the day. And I'll go into the detail. I did a lot of structure randomization within this to really resurface a lot of what I believe is good quote or good principle I want to remind myself. And then this daily notepad page is the core of the GTD work that I do, where it pulls the right task forward. So I know exactly what I want to pay attention to today. And then I have a might-do list. So this is an adaptation of a to-do list. I don't like to say to-do because even my today self do not like to follow instruction from yesterday's self. So I purposely kept it flexible to say I have a choice, but here is what I intend to focus on for the day. And I don't always go through it, but I do my best to prioritize it. And then I have specific meeting, which is pre-commitment, and then just working area. So typically what you will see is that when I'm working on something, I pull it right into my working area, as you can see here. And then whenever I'm done with it, I push it into my log and I can start a new task. But this is my structure. And let me start from the top. So this is more around the journaling pieces. So what you're seeing here, the daily mantra and the note to self, for people who are familiar with reference, this is basically a reference to a existing block. So what I did here is I have a randomization. I use Rome 42. It will pull a block, anything that's tagged with mantra. So what I usually do as I am reading and studying, and I found quotes that's really inspirational or helpful, I would tag it with mantra, and then it will be randomized and pull into my day-to-day. So what's important for yesterday's self, I resurface it for myself. So that's what I do. And I also have something that's more personal. If it, at some point I learned this lesson, I tag it with note to self. So this one is stop the theater of effort, but instead ask, what would it look like if it were easy? So it's just something that is really meaningful for me. And I want to remind myself that. And then this last one, my 12 favorite quote, is one of the exercises that we do in Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain. So one of the principle is, what are the 12 most important questions you want to ask yourself? And so this is just a reminder again, random structure randomization, where I pull something from my past self and give it to my current self. So these are just kind of my journaling technique for the day. So if I close this, let's go into the heart of GTD. So what you're seeing here is I use Rome 42 to pull in everything we just talked about from yesterday. So I'll have one to do for today. So I like to use embed. So you can see everything that we saw on the last page that was from yesterday, whatever's tagged as a to do that's tagged for today, I pull it in for to do for today. So what I then do is I will go through this list and say, well, how many of these am I going to do today? And I'm going to show you something cool. This is where I add in the workbench piece. So let's say I'm reviewing my work for today. And I want to say, Rome session, this is something I'm definitely doing. So I set up, this is a combination of workbench and hotkeys. So I set up something where I can just use a combination of both. And I just pushed it into my do list. So this is a really quick way without you switching context to be going through your list and then decide what you want to do for the day. And this has a purpose for later too. It really allows you to not be distracted by let's say you're doing something and somebody tap you on the shoulder, or if you're doing something and something pop up in your brain, you can use this to quickly switch context as well, and I'll show you. And so you go through this list for today, and then there's nothing tagged for tomorrow, but there's something tagged for the weekend. Again, this is what we saw on the previous page, where you say this weekend, this is what I want to do. And just a note, you will not see this in the background, but I also have logic set in here. So this particular weekend tag only shows up on Saturday and Sunday. So during the day, this weekend will not, this tag will not show up. So you can see this is what I plan to do for the weekend. So let's say I am not taking, Jason's probably not taking the kids to the water park today. It's tomorrow. So I can safely ignore that. But I do want to research for 5 brunch places for I'm going to Chicago. So again, I push it to my do list, and it's in there. So I go through my list to decide what I wanted to do for today. And then you also have next week and next month. So again, I resurface that during the weekend to say, hey, is there anything that I committed to do this week or next month that I want to pull into my to-do for today? And then also one pain point that I hear from the team is, how do I do reoccurring tasks, right? Like, how do I make sure I'm reminded? So I set up a structure for reoccurring task. So it's either by the day or by the day of the week. So what I do is, for example, 21st of every month, I have like subscription coming up. And so I always ask myself that day, do I want to continue to subscribe to it? And this is a good reminder for the 21st of the month for me to really look at this task. Or I usually have a Saturday coaching session. And so this will allow me to really track and keep reoccurring task in mind without having to generate it every day. Last thing, but not least, what happened when I am distracted during work? So I want to show you 2 pieces right here. If people familiar with GTD, they always recommend that you do a weekly review. So the idea is, even with this structure, there's still tasks that you either couldn't finish in the day, or it might be new tasks that you need to think about it for the future. So there's the idea of a weekly review. The suggestion is don't go longer than 7 days. So I have a page set up for weekly review, as you can see here. And then just for funsies, I will also bring the my do in here just to show you, right? So this is the my do, my list for today, and this is the weekly review. So how I usually utilize this is I like to be single tasking and focus on the work that I'm doing. So let's say I am talking to you guys. So I'm taking notes as I walk through my graph, but all of a sudden I remember I need to like buy bread, right? So this is something that I need to do today. And I also remember tomorrow I need to go for a run and pick up XYZ over the weekend, right? So this is something I know that I'm going to do. So let me highlight it so you guys can see with color. I'm going to push this. This just popped into my mind. I need to buy bread, but this is completely out of the context of what we're doing now, but I don't want to forget it. So what I would do is I will still capture it in true GTD style. And then with the hotkey, again, this is a combination of Rome 42 and Workbench. I just pushed it to my do list for today. And then this go for a run and pick up XYZ is something that I'm not worried about today. Maybe I'll do it over the weekend. I also have a hotkey set up where I can just push it. It's doing something that it gets a little glitchy, but it will basically push it into the weekly. Let me see. It will push it into the weekly one, but sometimes it gets a little glitchy. Test again. If it doesn't work, I will let it switch over, but you can see it got pushed to the weekly list, then I'll review over the week. So that's just in a nutshell, how I capture, externalize all my to-dos, being able to focus in my current task, but at the same time, being able to push it in different places using a combination of Rome 42 and Workbench.
Wow. Super impressive. Thank you so much for sharing that really deep dive there, and number of things I look forward to jumping into, later in the session. I want to hear a little bit more about Workbench and the hotkeys there that you're automating. But some of the things that really jumped out at me there, number one, sounds like a small thing, but like, I love that you call it the might do list. And I think what we call things is so important. And by calling it the might do list, I think you frame it perfectly like this. These are things that, I want to get to today. I'm going to do my best to get to them. But I love that framing. I also really like how you've set this up to where you can be super deliberate about, kind of reviewing and planning the work. I know this is one of the big things in GTD. Tiago Forte refers to a concept I've heard him called meta work, which is kind of the work of planning the work and being very deliberate about looking at your to-do list and sort of having those regular reviews, not just weekly, but literally on a daily basis, kind of making very deliberate decisions about what it is you're going to work on, what you're going to push off for later. And I love the way that you've set this all up to really facilitate that and make that really frictionless. So really cool. Very good stuff. Matt, I want to come over to you really quickly while we're on this theme of of to-dos. And as I alluded to in the intro, and as many people in the Roam community are aware, you've been doing some really groundbreaking work with regards to using Roam in team environments. Can you give us maybe a similar overview to how you manage tasks and to-dos with your team?
Yes, certainly. I'll just start this sharing here. So this is a empty graph. It's not an empty graph, it's my personal graph. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, this is my personal graph, but I've just pasted in all our workflows and CSS from Health Horizon here. And I might jump into Health Horizon to show you what it looks like in reality, because in reality, it looks much messier than this. But I think that's okay, because I mean, what Jessica was talking about, there's this comparison to like the brain is a messy office. I think I was thinking about that. A team is like, I like to think of it as a messy workshop. Well, yeah, when you put multiple teams together, it's like a workshop. And I wrote an article a little while ago where I lent into that metaphor. In fact, when we start a day, we run this smart block called workshop flow, which isn't here. Okay, that's the first. Let me try and find that. Hang on. So yeah, this is the real one, but okay, I can't find workshop floor. That's okay, because I can show you exactly what it looks like. This smart block essentially just has everybody's names, and it's a place to, and I use this CSS to sort of identify when we're talking about different people. So Coco is another person at the company. And then the space under here to do all your work. And not necessarily to do your work, but just keep whatever you need to keep that you want other people to know about in this place. Because for us, daily notes is not about writing down tasks. What I realized very early on is when you have multiple people, daily notes gets too chaotic if everybody is throwing in things they're thinking of as they go. So what you need to do is go to a page that represents something. So you might go to a page about the Roam Summit call, or a page about this aspect of your business, and write the tasks there and then tag people. What that means is when you do things like that, you might look down to your linked references. So when I look at my linked references on my daily notes page, I essentially see a summary of everything that's happened in the team on that day. So here I know that the Roam Summit's on because it's been tagged with today. Matt had a task. I quickly wrote it yesterday to make breakfast today. And a few days ago, someone sold $20 billion of products. And then that was tagged, so I can see that as well. And so what I can do is if there's any to-dos here, I usually block reference them from wherever they are in the knowledge graph into my daily notes. And by doing this, I can piece together what's happening in the day and work through them one by one. Usually it means you open this in your sidebar. Now you've got essentially your day of work to do. Jump to open any one of these again in the sidebar. This is set up for tasks. I found that the to-dos in a team, as in to-do boxes, they didn't have enough information to know like when the person did it and and who did it, because sometimes different people can work on it. So what we developed was our own to-do thing. So if as part of making breakfast, I need to say, toast bread, I can run a smart block that can assign this to anyone in the company. So if I assign this to myself, it creates task for Matthew, and it provides this little speech bubble which has notified me. I'll explain what that is later. And then there's a button here to trigger it as done. So we trigger smart blocks via buttons to convert this task for, if I click that, into a done by. So this means that you can be done by multiple people, and it automatically gives you the time and date. Because it's automatically writing the time and date here, it means when you look on another day, you can see everything anyone did on that day, and no one is thinking about reporting their progress. Everyone is just writing tasks, assigning tasks, and clicking them as done. And then the daily notes page is collecting this information automatically. So when I arrive in the morning, I'm in Australia, so I'm first in the day, so it's empty. But I go to yesterday and I can see everyone has, I can see a summary of everything that was done by everybody in all the different parts of the company. One other, I wanted to go through the kind of things I wanted. When I first discovered Roam, I thought these are the things I could finally get. I've tried a lot of task management software and project management software. The things I wanted was deduplication, meaning not having multiple tasks in the same task in multiple places and people being confused about what they're working on, or even documentation. Oh, I updated it here. I forgot to update it there. Sorry, you've been working on the wrong information for a while. Just eliminating that as a problem. And I thought the idea of having a networked collection of blocks should be able to do that, because if you update a block, it's updated everywhere that it's referenced. And like the universal capture is the next easy one to understand, which is whatever you're thinking, whatever it's relevant to, you can just throw it into your daily notes or wherever you need to put it, and it'll find a home later. Whereas if you are running multiple online pieces of software like Trello for your tech and Pipedrive for your sales, then you need to know where to go first. So you need to, get an idea, then what system controls that? Okay, go into that system and then write it down. But I thought Roam had held the secret to doing universal capture, where I just write down a block and can run from there. And a good example of that is when Jessica talked about buying bread. That was an idea that popped out of nowhere. And it's like, I don't want to forget this, but I don't want it to distract me either. And that's, I agree with that 1,000,000%, because a good example of that is, what I was doing when listening to Jessica. I was listening to Jessica and I was kind of fixing up my demonstration as it was happening. But then Jess mentioned this week concept. And I've been trying to do something like that with Health Horizon. I haven't really been able to do it. And also pulling in random thoughts. I thought, it'd be cool to pull in random company philosophies or objectives every day to remind people, because I've been trying to think of a way to do that as well. So what I would have done if I didn't want to save it for this is I would have, as I wrote that, just said, ask Jessica for more information. JJ task map, right? And then done. And then I keep going. And I know that this will remind me to do that later. But for this, maybe I don't want to follow up. Maybe I want to tell somebody else about this. So what we have here, and it doesn't exist because this is a clean graph, but this is how I would usually do it. I would say, I've got a few calls here in my personal life, but I have a tag of regular calls. So if I wanted to bring this up on my next weekly call and get everyone's opinion on it, I would just tag the idea with next weekly call and then move on with my life and then just keep going. The thought here is that I can be assigning tasks to people. I can be putting them on call agendas just with a tag and just keep listening and keep going. I can dive into this call agenda. It's a pretty good example of getting things done. But what you do there is just before the weekly call, I can jump in, and then you can see on every day, on every page, everywhere you've thought, I need to bring this up at the weekly call, it's now listed here. And so I usually just create a block here to represent today, block reference the things in the call. And then if you want to do things super clean, now you have your agenda for the call, and that's all ready. And the cool thing here, usually this would be open in the sidebar, because now this would be a whole list of block references that are pointing you in the graph to what you need to talk about that day. So this thing, pulling in a random objective, sorry, my Roam thing is getting in the way. This thing about pulling in a random objective, I would double click that, and here I am to the original note. And now we can talk about that.
Yeah. Quick question on this one. How do you, are you just regularly going through and cleaning up those linked references? Because how do you prevent that next weekly call from just like, is it just a running list of everything you've thought of? And maybe you're just reviewing it before every weekly call and pulling things up, but how do you keep it from just filling up with, something that you tagged next weekly call 6 or 8 months ago, for example?
Yeah. So in this case, a task would sit here. When I pull it in, we might work on it. So we might find, okay, this is our conclusion, right? So this is what we find and talk about and think about this thing. Then if we're satisfied with that, I'll delete this next weekly call
Got
tag.
it. And remove it out of there.
Yeah, because now on the daily notes, if I return to daily notes, there is a record that it was brought up in that weekly note. So if I find the task here, if I look at the clicked references, I can see it was on the 22nd in the next weekly call that we thought these things. So the record is there that it was mentioned. But the other benefit there is if you don't finish, you can just leave it there, and it's naturally a reminder to talk about it the next day. So that's the process. I found this is the nicest way to do regular calls like that.
Right.
Another example of something you want to do on the run is if I say I'm listening and or talking to somebody, and again, these ideas come out of nowhere and I don't want to think about them, but I don't want to forget either. One might be an opportunity. So we have an opportunity. Oh, okay, this is the wrong one actually. This is a CRM opportunity, which I might be able to go into later. So let's just get to that. An objective. So these are like something that the company wants to do. Maybe it's about a week long or a few days, just something everyone needs to focus on. So if we use the make breakfast example here, I'd like to introduce it in a slightly different way. So the way it would usually work is that someone would bring up the fact, geez, I'm hungry, right? And you would say, okay, Jessica's hungry. And then you would elaborate on that and say, oh, I'm just keen on eggs right now. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll think about eggs. And then we think, okay, no, this idea that we just thought up is an objective we need to do. So then the idea is you want to convert this idea into now an objective that we can work on. So now that block has now turned into an objective. And, we can have eggs and bacon in here in your description. And when I created this objective, it automatically tagged me to plan the approach to solve this. So again, I could finish here and keep moving on, thinking about different meals of the day or whatever. And this will be in my notification list to remind me to plan this out. So you can sort of half do things and it'll leave notifications for you to come back and do them.
Right.
Another example as part of the approach, you might want to if you need to build a toaster, for example, and this is where we start getting into the other parts of the company, this might actually be a technical task. So I can turn this into, I don't think this will work. This is a new one I'm experimenting with. This will turn it into an actual tech task, which then I can drag into a Kanban board for development. So the idea is really to be able to, from a block, spawn out like the objects you need to run a business, and then move those objects around as you need them when you're getting things done.
Right. Really cool. Very nice use of smart blocks. And I love some of these concepts here. The template for the objectives I thought was a really cool idea. And just really neat. I am curious to know. So you talked at the beginning about how your actual team graph is quite messy. I've had a guest on, Jamie, who did the Rome Untangled course a while ago, had a great saying when I asked him, what's one piece of advice that you would give to Rome users? And his answer was keep it ugly. And so this idea of like allowing your graph to be a little bit messy is I think there's really something there, and it's hard. Like I know for me, I tend to be on the side of the spectrum where I really want things to be kind of tidy and orderly. And it took me a long time to kind of embrace the idea of just letting my graph get a little bit messy. It's just a place to develop stuff. I am curious though, Matt, in a team environment, how has your team taken to using this sort of lack of constraints and structure, I think could be a real challenge in a team environment. Can you spend just a couple of minutes talking a little bit about some of the challenges maybe that you've run into with respect to that?
Yeah, sure. We're a small team, so we're 5 people at the moment. We were 4 when we started using Roam. And so there isn't a problem associated with too many people and too much stuff going on yet. That hasn't arisen, but I could see it happening. I have general advice, which is if you already have a company with lots of systems in place, moving to Roam will be a real pain. It was to us. We were already a running company beforehand. If you were starting a new project from scratch with a small team, building up from your initial ideas and building your systems and your operations, it would be amazing for that, and it really should be. And then to me it would be, I think if you started, when you started a project, built a team around it, built up your Roam, you might reach a stage where you need to go into some enterprise software to solve it, but maybe not. I don't know. I've noticed that I have my way of using Roam and everyone else has a different way. I couldn't force the team members to do it in their own way. So I do create this this real. Everyone here has an attention page. So there's Coco's attention. There's my attention. You can already see Sunil here has already changed how his works. He's got a unique tag that he's using. But I know that, for example, Sunil has changed how his. I'll show you what this page actually is. So Sunil has modified the entire structure and uses it to fit how he does work. And Coco has her own way of organizing notes on the daily notes page. That's what I've seen. I've got my way, which I showed you, where I drag all the block references there. And I know Edon, for example, he's not really interested in the whole Roam connectivity thing. He's a hard-nosed developer and he just wants his tasks in front of him and he wants to smash through them. And he can do that using his attention page, so long as everyone else on the team is careful enough to use the right tags to assign them. So yeah, I've noticed that everyone uses it in a different way. And it was quite hard to move from an existing system into this, depending on what people want. To explain other aspects of this is quite an important function. This is the attention page. Everywhere where a user is linked in a certain way will come up here. So I need to check this every day to see what people want of me. The simplest one are these. I found the best way to divide it was in these new assigned tasks, essentially, and then just notifications. So if I look at these are just places that people have used the speech bubble emoji, which means they appear here and they point me essentially to the part of the graph where I need to talk about. So there's stuff about using intercom as a service, bookkeeping, the technical sprint. There's a whole bunch of, it's pointing to everywhere in the graph that my attention needs to be drawn to. And these are the tasks that are sitting around. So this will show you what my backlog is like as a founder. But these are all assigned tasks that I should be working on that are all here in one place. And you can see this one is about an aspect of the company. This is about some advertising. This is about a customer. This is about a tech sprint. This is about something we're trying to achieve. This is our CRM. These are the people in it. This is what we're trying to do with a new version of the app. Here's our pipeline. So all of this has tasks littered around the place that I need to go back to. But in terms of messiness, the other part of your question, I've learned to embrace the messiness. That was a lot of the reasoning behind this workshop metaphor, because to me, like when you go into a workshop, you get that feeling that it's working well when it's a bit messy, when there's sort of wood scraps on the floor and people's lunches on the side and all that kind of stuff, then you know stuff's happening. So I actually use that as an indication that it's a creative place to be working when it's a bit messy. So I think that does work with a messy one.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I want to get back to Jessica here. There are a couple of quick questions though. I want to see if we can rattle off from our live audience. So Matt, Maggie asked, how are the 42 smart blocks set up for marking as done? They look like they're perfectly right aligned. So a CSS or a rendered component. Any thoughts on that?
The buttons, these buttons being right aligned. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a CSS for the buttons. It's the only way I could do it, because I'm not a programmer. It right aligns every button on the whole website. It's something like this. Yeah, float right. Yeah.
Gotcha. So it is CSS. Cool. And then there was another question, just kind of like, how did you train everyone? Can you give us just a quick overview of like, did you have sort of a dedicated session? Did you bring everyone into a room and kind of say, hey, we're going to do the Roam thing? Or was it a little bit more organic than that? Like, what was your very high level approach to getting the team up to speed on Roam?
Oh, I don't remember. It was a while ago. I think
sounds like it was probably pretty organic then. I mean, you've got a small team. Yeah. I can tell from, you talked about everybody kind of has their own sort of workflow. So you presumably you've got a team of people who are willing to kind of get in and tinker. So I would assume that some of this is just about having a team that's, sort of willing to embrace new ways of working and diving in and experimenting, and kind of getting themselves up to speed a little bit.
I think I did it function by function. I think so. I think I did like the more sort of strategy, businessy stuff in here first, and then the other people didn't need to use it, like all my responsibilities. And then I brought more and more information on from the different platforms onto here, and then the people using those platforms followed me on. I think that's how I did it.
So kind of taking a lean, iterative approach, using it to solve one problem, and then using that momentum to sort of scale it up to the next step within the company, and allowing it to sort of become adopted that way.
I think so. Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, Jessica, I'd love to come back to you and kind of stay on this topic of Matt has clearly fully embraced Roam here, and this idea of Roam being the one-stop shop or the Swiss Army knife for his business, and moving pretty much every use case in there. I know that in prepping for this session, you were mentioning specifically that you have some other use cases that you use where you've got, Notion, I think you're using, and Bear Notes. And so talk a little bit about your philosophy there. And it looks like you got your screen share going. So share a little bit about how you're using some of these other tools in conjunction with Roam.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. So one of the pain points that I had personally is that everybody's time is limited. And then in between work and a lot of the other creative work that I'm doing, I just don't have enough time between it. So when I took Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain class, there's this concept called like a slow burn versus a heavy lift. So the idea is slow burn is like during the course of the day, you have these 10 minutes, 20 minutes kind of snippet of time where if you use those time to capture idea and get the work done and collect the body of work you need to do, then when you sit down on a desk, you can do all of that together. So you're not using your attention to collect and sort through document when you could have done it in a slow burn style other time. So Notion is my system for slow burn. And the reason for that is that I am a fan of this idea of the light touch, where I could be driving to work, I could be just walking and texting, but I want to capture these ideas that pop in my brain and be able to do iteration on it as I go. So I might have an idea for example, for this demo, I can actually show you guys. So for this demo, I actually use this method to collect the use case I want to use. So an example of that is literally I'll be on a walk or I'll be driving to work and I'll say, Siri, listen.
One sec. What text?
An idea for the demo, hashtag to do.
On it.
So the internet is processing. So you can see that just by, I'm walking, I don't have my hands, I can't type it in, but I'm driving and I say, hey, here's an idea for the demo. I capture it. And then throughout the day, I have it set up so that I can quickly look at the top 10. So these are all just shortcut that I developed. These are the 10 ideas or the things that I was thinking about. And you can see that I customize it. So anything with a microphone is basically I dictated it. Anything with the like little note, I wrote it in. So you can see this is the list of things that I was thinking about. A lot of GTD stuff, a lot of demo stuff, as you can see, right? And so I use this to capture my idea, and I go through iteration where, oh, there's a demo idea, I add a little bit every time I look at it. And then what do I do at the end of the day? Let's say I got home, I have 10 ideas, and it's time to really think about what I want to do. So I created this, which is a push directly from Notion to Roam. So let's say I'm ready for the demo. So this is a demo idea. This is the bio, something about GTD. I want to do a demo automation. So I select all of them and I click done. And then this is just to show, I basically then push this all in my graph. You should be able to see in a little bit. Again, there's a little bit of a time lag, but I don't know if it shows up or not, but you can see I just push all of that into my graph. So the idea is I'm able to do these, utilize these 10, 5 minutes everywhere and utilize when I'm smart and have a good idea and I collect them and then I'm ready to do deep work. I can then take all of that, push it into my graph. And here are all the work that I thought about that I kind of mull over, but I'm now ready to sit down and actually do the work. So this is kind of my capture framework. And I'm a big proponent of making sure you design the tool to work for you instead of molding yourself to the tool. So before the call, Jason and Matt were talking about how Roam feels like a piece of white paper. And then when you put a beginner in front of it, a lot of times you have writer's block. And because there are just so many different ways you can use this piece of white paper, you can write on it, you can draw on it, you can burn it, you can, to get fire, you can make an airplane out of it, right? It is up to you to decide what works best for you. And this is kind of the hybrid workflow and the automation I've developed to allow me to do that slow burn and then do that light touch. And then when I'm ready to do deep work, I pull it into Roam.
Yeah, really interesting. So I did want to ask a quick question. So you're using Notion in that process. Is the main reason that you're using Notion there simply because the tools that were available to make that particular workflow that you wanted, the ability to, narrate the thing and then have it go to Notion and very quickly get into Roam? Are you using Notion just because of that, or are there other things about Notion for this particular use case that you like?
There are other things about Notion. So the idea of light touch. So for example, if let's say, I know Phone to Roam is a similar thing to push into Notion, but the idea is that two-way street, right? So let's say in here, if I have an idea for demo and then I push it into Roam, it takes a long time. So let's say now I want to add idea underneath it. So I want to do automation, I want to do hybrid. It's harder to pull it out and add those light touches and additional information to it. Versus with Notion, I can just open up that note that I was just on, and I have a shortcut that basically pull up the latest 10 that I edited. So I can quickly pick that out and then just start to add detail to it. And I also have other automation where I can say, add a new note. I just keep adding note and I merge these 10 together and they become one Notion notes. And then I can push it. It gives you the ability to quickly navigate between idea, add on to it, merge them, and then you do the deep processing and connecting here in Roam.
Yeah, very cool. We use Notion at work, so I'm a heavy Notion user and a heavy Roam user, and I really like what you've done with that workflow, and I think I might have to steal some inspiration from you there. Let's keep going.
Cool.
It was very cool. Let's spend just a few more minutes here with you, Jessica, and kind of come back. Like when you were showing your daily task workflow earlier, you were doing some really cool things there with Workbench and keyboard shortcuts, and there was like very quick things happening that looked almost completely effortless. Lift up the hood for us and talk to us a little bit about what's going on with Workbench and some of those keyboard shortcuts that you're using in your graph.
Let me think about that for a second. There are a few things at play. So I think there are three main things at play. One is the Roam 42. So with the Roam 42, you have a lot of like logic controller. So you can do like, if this happened, then this happened. And then that's also how I built the daily page. Actually, let me just show you the template. So I actually have a template for all my, right here, what you're seeing, let me just side-by-side comparison, morning pages. So this is the code for all the morning pages. It's using a Roam 42. It's called random block mention. Anything that has the word mantra, the hashtag mantra in it will get pulled in, and anything with a note to self. And a different way of using it is this random block from. So this is random block mention is when you have a hashtag and it'll pull anything with a hashtag. Random block from is that I have a page or a block, anything underneath it will get pulled in. So this is where how I pull in my 12 favorite questions.
Got it. Very cool. And talk to us. Yeah, go ahead.
One more thing that I think I saw somebody on Twitter asking. So one of my pain point when I was trying to figure this out is the ability to quickly get reference information. So instead of having to click through it, try to get the reference ID, I also, and this is where Alfred comes into play. So I have it set up. So I basically Control D is my shortcut. So I just copy the reference and I can show you. I just paste it. So by Control D, I basically just copy the reference. There's a shortcut that I map to. And another cool thing that I did is I can do Control E, which can automatically then take that reference and paste it as an embed. And then another thing that I can do that I map to is I can also paste it as an alias just by doing very, very quick shortcut, and that I use Alfred. Last thing I'll show you is that, again, this is, and I'll jump into the actual Alfred kind of workflow that I have, is that I can also take a reference. I work heavily with embed because embedded link, because I usually add to a particular to-do. There's usually a lot of research underneath it. I like to use embed so I can add it and then I can find it in its context. So I've developed this where I can just quickly turn it into a embed automatically just using Alfred with a hotkey. So you might be thinking, well, how did you do that? Let me show you how I do that. So for Alfred, I have a bunch of workflows that I put together, Workbench. So this is a complicated mapping, as you can see. What happened, this is a Workbench mapping, and Workbench mapping is a little bit more complex because the way you call Workbench is Control, comma, and then it'll pull out the menu for you. So I use a lot of, when you see the seamless movement between what I'm working on now to moving it to a different page, it's all through Workbench. So it allows you, the power of a Workbench is that it allows you to really navigate using your keyboard and then be able to move or reference different blocks throughout the pages just through this structure. And at the beginning, when I start using keyboard and Alfred, like I think I learned it from Ali Abdal. I saw his video and he was a big proponent for Alfred. And I was like, what is the big deal? Like, just because, like, what's the difference between like clicking and like using your keyboard? And what I actually learned, the interesting thing is these are the little friction that breaks you out of your context. And by automating all of that, when you're doing heavy lift thinking, that might be the last straw that break the camel's back and then make you easily distracted. So I like to do everything with automation and shortcut. So I'm always staying within the context that I'm working with, and allows me to navigate the graph more quickly just using Workbench, the way that I just demonstrated moving things around. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think the point you made there at the end is such an important one. And it's something that I tell people all the time whenever anyone asks me about sort of my system for getting things done and productivity. One of the things that I talk about all the time is just don't underestimate the power of like removing even tiny little pieces of friction from the process. Like any ounce of friction that you can squeeze out of your process pays off. And I love the way that you framed that, because I hadn't quite thought of it that way specifically, but it really does keep you in your context. And if you can shave even, small little bits of time off, then you can really make a big difference. So it looks like Jessica may have dropped off there. I'm sure she'll be rejoining us here momentarily. I was going to come over to you, Matt, anyways, because in the last 5 to 10 minutes that we have left here, I know you have some custom workflows and things that you've set up in your graph, and I'd love to spend some time diving into that and talk to us a little bit about how you've set up workflows in your team environment.
Yes. Yeah, totally. On what you're talking about, the frictions. So I get those questions a lot about the frictions in working with a team. The onboarding costs, the messiness, all these things, and these are valid costs. from moving to Rome, absolutely. But people do forget the current costs that they've accepted and forgotten about. So the costs like knowledge is hidden away in all these different SaaS platforms you might have at any one time. People have to task switch, platform switch to think about these different ideas. It's hard to think in terms of implications on a sales aspect when you're in Trello doing tech stuff, but those things are all in the same place and always top of mind when you're in Rome because everything's connected up. So yeah, it's good to remember the frictions with the existing systems that you use in comparison.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point.
Where I think Rome is for teamwork, the reason I think it's really got legs is it's structureless, and we know it's structureless because it's based on a graph. But there is an implicit structure when you use something like Trello that says, okay, now everything you do is in columns, and everything has to be a card, and cards can't reference each other, other than URL, and then they've got to move to the right. There's a more obvious structure in something like Asana, where you set up tasks, and any kind of task management system has assigned structure to you, whereas Rome is one step below that escapes that completely. The places I've found that to be valuable is that if you have certain ways your company does things, you can build up a workflow really quickly to just suit exactly what you want to do. So one of the products we build at Health Horizon is called a channel. And so if I need to think up a new channel or create a new one, I just use JJ channel and it builds all the information we need here. And so that's not too impressive. I mean, this is just a template, but if you come down, by default, this thing tags me to specify this channel. So again, if I'm in a call and I just go JJ channel, write in the channel name, and then forget about it, it'll tag me and tell me to come back to finish it. This discussion here, it says specified channel assigns that to me, but you can see the done button is different. Now it's mark as spec'd and now ask Coco to build the channel. So it's not just done, it's take the next step of the workflow. And the workflow is whatever your company does. So if I click this, I hope this works. No, it's because it's the new graph. Hang on, let me do that in. Where's this? This is because I moved to Rome 42 a few days ago and I haven't updated all the buttons. So let me jump to, as in version 2. Channels. There we go. It's a 42 smart block. It needs to be a normal smart block. So now if I've done the spec thing, and I'll need to edit this one as well because it was created before I made that change. So now if I click that, okay, sorry, I haven't updated this to be version 2.
No worries. This is all part of the deal, right? There's sort of this ongoing maintenance and grooming, I think is part of the deal with Rome. And this kind of a point I often make is like, we see these really impressive use cases on these Rome sessions. And I'm always quick to remind people that like these users didn't get to this place in like one leap. Right. It was very iterative and there was a lot of like tweaking and editing and fixing of things as you go. And I think it's really important as a Rome user to kind of embrace that mentality.
I think the quickest way to do this is actually to jump into here. And I think the problem I did was I didn't copy them out of Health Horizon. I cut them out of Health Horizon. So I need to add them back in.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jessica. Finish your thought there.
I want to add to that is these efforts are not in vain. So like I can't, like every month I at least revamp it twice. And the interesting part is it's a really good way of you to understand if your assumption about yourself is correct. Because there's a lot of time I built something, I'm like, this is perfect. This is how it works. And then when I go into actually working on it, I'm like, wait, this is so much friction. This is not even how I think. So don't think that just because you need to revamp something, your effort is in vain. It's not. It's every iteration is a chance of you knowing how you work and working better with your future self. So it's actually a great exercise.
Yeah, what a great point. Thank you for that.
And this is the other reason I'm excited about the new Rome the new Rome 42, but I haven't really made the jump yet. It's because so much of it's tied to I think there's some slight variation. Like I'm very excited about the automation piece, but I'm just until it's done, I'm like waiting for it to complete before I go there.
Yeah, you have to wait. You have to wait until you're ready. It's definitely anytime you update something like that, you're making a leap, and you're going to be facing a few weeks or maybe a month or two of some small kind of tweaking of things as you go.
Mm-hmm. I was on the phone to David doing some stuff just a couple of days ago. So it'll take me a little while to update this one to Rome 42, but to version 2. But this one gets marked as done automatically, and then it creates, please build this channel, and then assigns that to Coco. And then when Coco has done that, she clicks this button, mark channel is built. Now tell Matt to send the channel. This will probably crash again, but you can see the next thing that comes out is channel ready, and then tags me to send it. So this is a custom workflow that's super easy to build. It's an example. I don't think I've been able to dive into this as deep as I can with other things. But if you have a special workflow where something needs to go to somebody else, and then 5 people need to check it here, and then it goes back here, and whatever it happens to be, if you had to build that into something like Asana or Trello, it might just not be possible. And then, so what you're doing then is you need to change how your company works to fit Trello's structure, which seems like a terrible idea. If you're willing to build a custom workflow in Rome, and honestly, when I built this the first time, it took like 15 minutes, really. You can have it follow exactly the contours of the flows of your own business. And that's why I think eventually, that's why I say it's got legs. It's still chunky and a bit hard to use, but it'll be able to fit any workflow. And I think that's its real advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been really amazing, Matt. Did you have more that you wanted to? Was there more you wanted to show here, or
no? That
I feel like you were aiming to say something there.
No, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, this has been amazing, guys. I really appreciate both of you sharing so much useful information, and I know I've taken a lot away from this that I'll be experimenting with in my own graph, and hopefully those who joined us live here today will as well. And for all of you watching in the future, we hope that you take a lot away from it as well. So while we're wrapping up here, I want to take a moment to allow both of you to kind of let the audience know, if they want to connect with you, learn more about your work, maybe ask you a follow-up question or two, what would be the best way for them to do that? And Jessica, we'll start with you.
Oh, just find me on Twitter, Jessica Shea, first name, last name. And yeah, DM me if you have any question. If you'd like to dig a little deeper into the mechanics of everything you just saw, I'm also happy to show you around.
Cool. And by the way, for anybody watching in the future, I will make sure that links to Twitter profiles and things of that nature are included in the description below. So be sure to check there. Matt, if anyone listening wants to connect with you, learn more about your work, what would be the best way for them to do it?
Twitter's good. I also have that roamforteamwork.com. That's a newsletter that I send out semi-regularly. The other thing is that I put up an announcement on Twitter a little while ago. I'd like to build workflows for some people out there. So if you have a team and you're thinking of moving into this, just like those, that workflow that automatically notified other people as you click the buttons, or the CRM, which I didn't show, and the tech stuff, which I didn't show. If you're interested in building those up for your own team, I would like to, as a learning exercise, but also to build up some extra smart blocks, build some flows for your team. So if you're interested in that, contact me, and I will DM me on Twitter or email me in the newsletter, and we'll do a call, and yeah, maybe we can pull together some cool smart blocks for you.
Excellent. I would love to be kept up to speed as you move forward with that, to hear how that goes as you expand your efforts out to help additional people in the community. Want to also just take a quick moment to remind everybody to take a moment to connect with Roam Sessions. If you haven't done that already, a few ways to do that up on your screen right now. Subscribe.roamsessions.com. That'll get you signed up for the email newsletter where I'll send out reminders about upcoming sessions, as well as links to past recorded sessions and things of that nature. At Roam Sessions on Twitter and Jason at roamsessions.com. Those are great ways to connect with me as well. Would love to hear any feedback, any topics that you would like to hear discussed on future sessions. I'm all ears and definitely respond to all of those messages. So once again, thank you everybody who joined us live today. Matt, Jessica, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
It's been fun.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
See you later.
All right, guys. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will look forward to seeing you on the next session. Take